Welcome to Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's, an investigative journalism program, or IJP, where I ask the question, whatever happened to the pizza at McDonald's, a proud part of the Panoply Network, a wholly owned subsidiary of Pizzaply Media. I'm your host, Brian Thompson, investigative journalist. Longtime listeners of this program will recall that for the past several weeks it has not been called Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's and was instead temporarily rebranded as a new program called Sériàlle, which chronicled mysterious true crime and true crime adjacent McDonald's pizza happenings in the nation of Canada. Despite the fact that as of just a few days ago, I was fully prepared to rent a wetsuit that had been hosed of all its previous users' urine and dive into the waters off the coast of Vancouver in search of McDonald's pizza evidence that may have been chucked into the deep from the floating McBarge, I am afraid that Sériàlle must now come to an abrupt, unwelcome, unwarranted, and borderline humiliating end. For not 48 hours ago, I received the following correspondence from Diane, General Counsel for the New York Times, which is a local newspaper published in the city of New York City. Mr. Thompson, I'm General Counsel for the New York Times. I'm writing in regard to your podcast that appears to be entitled Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's. I've noticed that you've released several episodes making use of a name and typographical treatment that appears to infringe upon trademarks held by the New York Times in relation to serial productions. Specifically, you've used the name Sériàlle both within the podcast itself and in social media branding in a way that appears to cause intentional confusion. Additionally, the podcast episodes in question contain a reproduction of the song entitled Bad Dream by Nick Thorburn, which is also legally and famously used as the theme music for the New York Times-owned podcast Serial. Could you please confirm your formal affiliation with the New York Times and/or Serial Productions? If there is no such formal affiliation, we'll have to ask you to cease and desist releasing content, including podcast episodes, social media posts, etc., reflecting an intentional resemblance to copyrighted material owned and/or exclusively licensed by the New York Times. Best, Diane. This is not the first time I have received such correspondence. When I first launched my program, Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's, I believed it was part of the Panoply Network, which at the time was a semi-successful network of roughly 732 podcasts published by the Slate Group. As such, I included Panoply Network branding on the artwork for my program, and said at the beginning of every episode that it was a part of the Panoply Network. I found out shortly thereafter that I had been the victim of a confidence scheme. I received a cease and desist letter from a representative of the Slate Group claiming they had no record of my program being affiliated with them. After some investigation, I determined that a Mr. Monroe Boswell, a confidence trickster with a personal vendetta against me, had sent me an electronic mail in the guise of one Mark Panoply, a fictional character claiming to be the founder and CEO of the Panoply Network, inviting me to release my show under their brand. I immediately honored this request to cease and desist, and showed remarkable humility in admitting my victimhood to the Slate Group. Shortly thereafter, the original Panoply Network was disbanded after suffering financial ruin. Whether this was due to mismanagement, general lack of audience interest, or spending too much money on high-priced lawyers is a question for podcast historians to ponder. Regardless, the brand became defunct until rather recently, when I was able to claim it as a subsidiary of my company Pizzaply Media, based on various laws, statutes, and legal precedents related to abandoned intellectual property. And as for the whereabouts of the confidence trickster Mr. Monroe Boswell, The last official word I heard was that a coalition of law enforcement officials from Interpol, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the Green Berets, and others traced him to an oasis in the Patagonian desert and gunned him down in his own spider hole. Thus, I am somewhat confident that this latest cease and desist letter from the New York Times has nothing to do with any confidence scheme. Instead, I believe I have simply fallen victim to an understandable misunderstanding. While it is true that the logo for my program Sériàlle does somewhat resemble the logo for the podcast Sériàlle, I did not believe this amounted to anything approaching a copyright violation. For one thing, Sériàlle and Sériàlle are two completely different words. For another, I believed any association between the two brands would only be of benefit to Sériàlle. It was my honest hope that if Sériàlle reminded any of my listeners of Sériàlle's existence, they would be motivated to Google the Sériàlle program, and perhaps listen to some of the however many seasons have been produced after Season 2, which most people did not finish on account of its being rather boring. As for the usage of the Sériàlle theme song Bad Dream by Nick Thorburn, I mistakenly believed any copyright on said song had lapsed. Nick Thorburn is a member of the musical group called Islands, but I was under the impression he was a member of the musical group Future Islands, which was forced to disband and forfeit all of its copyrights after its lead singer passed away in a tragic squatting accident. Still, since Mr. Nick Thorburn from Islands is originally from the island of Vancouver Island, I still believe I am within my rights to use his music on a Canadian-themed program under the terms of the American-Canadian Cultural Exchange Act of 1991, a piece of legislation which allowed American public television stations to set aside their coveted 4:30 a.m. Sunday time slots for rebroadcasts of The Red Green Show. Finally, since Sériàlle is somewhat of a tribute to Sériàlle, I thought the powers that be might metaphorically look the other way regarding any legal issues due to being deeply flattered. Upon receipt of this correspondence from the New York Times, my first impulse was to appeal to the creative forces behind Sériàlle. In my experience, those genius minds like myself who create the art that corporate powers only package and distribute to the eager public tend to understand each other in a more thorough and empathetic way than I could expect to be understood by a powerful local newspaper's legal stooges. But while looking up contact information for Sériàlle co-creators Sarah Koenig and Julie Snyder, I discovered why the New York Times now owns this program. While Sériàlle was created as a spin-off of the radio program This American Life, it was detached from said company and purchased by the New York Times in 2020 for $25 million. Consequently, I learned Ms. Koenig and Ms. Snyder, in addition to officially working as New York Times employees, are nigh unreachable due to their living on a private Caribbean island in a so-called polycule with Ira Glass, Mike Birbiglia, and Adnan Syed. Thus, I have decided to honor this request and both cease and desist production of Sériàlle, effective immediately. And as you can no doubt tell from my tone of voice, I am filled with rage over this turn of events. As a deeply spiritual person who owns several copies of Bible, I take no pleasure in feeling this way. The Christ, aka Jesus Ben David, is one of my top role models, perhaps third only behind Woodward and Berenstain, and he was not a person known for his uncontrollable anger. Yes, there was the time he became very upset upon finding merchants inside a holy temple and made quite a donkey of himself, screaming and yelling and knocking their booths over. But that was a one-time slip-up in what otherwise appeared to be quite a calm life. In fact, when he was executed by the government and returned to Earth as a ghost, there is no record of him taking out his frustration on the perpetrators via haunting. Instead, he calmly went about his business of visiting his mother and letting his friends finger his holes. I strive to be similarly unencumbered by rancorous bile, but I admit this is somewhat of a major struggle. Over the course of my investigation into McDonald's pizza matters, such as whatever happened to it, etc., I have faced numerous setbacks. These have always proven frustrating and even occasionally enraging. But I have always persevered, soothing myself with the knowledge that one day, no matter what, I will uncover the truth. I still believe this, but I am only human. I am reminded of a very special 2-part episode of the series Highlander the Series. For those unfamiliar, this series follows the adventures of one Duncan MacLeod from the Clan MacLeod, a Scottish Highlander who is also immortal. In the world of the television program and the motion picture franchise upon which it is based, there are many immortal people who, throughout history, engage in combat to the death. The only way to kill an immortal is to sever one's head from their body, which is why they almost all fight each other with swords. The fact that they can be killed means they probably should come up with some other word to describe themselves besides immortal, but that is beyond the scope of this anecdote. You see, our hero Duncan MacLeod is a good immortal, so he mostly engages in combat with evil immortals. But when one immortal beheads another, they absorb the fallen foe's essence in a storm of mystical electricity called a quickening. In the special 2-part episode in question, Duncan MacLeod kills one too many evil immortals. Having absorbed so much evil energy, he himself becomes evil. As another immortal who is Duncan MacLeod's friend puts it, Duncan's metaphorical cup becomes figuratively full. Ultimately, the situation is resolved when he climbs into a magic well, splits into both a good and bad version of himself a la Superman 3, and defeats his darker half in combat of the sword. I myself am not immortal. I also do not believe I am in any danger of splitting in two and having to fight myself. But my cup is becoming somewhat full of frustrations vis-a-vis my career as an investigative journalist, and I do not like the way it is making me feel. Over the years, I have tried numerous treatments for my anger management issues. In fact, I have tried almost every treatment, short of therapy or intense self-reflection. But one of the treatments I have yet to try is a treatment known as aromatherapy. According to essential oil salespeople with certifications in all manner of soft sciences, certain scents are known to have a calming effect on the body and are an effective method of tamping down any anger that a person might feel over common slights such as suffering an unkind word, being let down by a loved one, or being forced to cancel your true crime program by the New York Times. So, I set about treating myself to some of this treatment. Unfortunately, it did not go as smoothly as I hoped.
You have reached the SC Johnson Care Team. It's our pleasure to be of service.
Thank you for calling. My name is Colin. How can I help you?
Hello, my name is Brian Thompson. I'm calling with, I guess, a bit of a complaint and then also a question about a Glade plug-in product that I recently purchased. You do manufacture Glade plugins, correct?
Yeah, I'm with Glade.
Okay.
You can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, I guess I'll start with the complaint. I purchased a Glade plug-in, and of course it plugs right into the plug on the wall. And I was having some trouble getting the plug into the plug. So I thought maybe there was a friction issue. I don't plug many things in because I can't afford the electricity. So maybe there was some corrosion or something inside the plug. So to sort of lubricate the plug, I licked my fingers and I stuck them into the socket. And I experienced quite a bit of a shock. I'm fine now. I did not require any medical intervention. I woke up, I think it was just a few hours later, and I didn't really have any side effects other than just some very stiff hair. But I just wanted to let you know that that happened. And maybe there could be a warning added to the Glade plug-in instructions saying maybe if you experience trouble sticking the plug into the plug, maybe do not lubricate it with your wet finger or something like that. I'm not a copywriter, so I don't know the best wording for it.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm glad you're okay. I apologize for that. Can I get the UPC barcode number? And I know you said you're okay, but I do want to get you over to medical team just to document it. Would that be okay with you?
Oh, certainly. I do not have the barcode. It was a Glade plug-in scented oil warmer, max control. I threw away the packaging. I'm sorry. I just don't like very much clutter.
No worries. I'm going to place you... Actually, no. Let me get some more information. Can I get your full name?
Brian Thompson. It's Brian with one R. I also had a question to ask you as well about the product, if I could do so, maybe. Ahead. Well, I purchased several different scents for it, and the reason I purchased it was for some aromatherapy. I have some anger management issues, and I was wondering if you could advise me which of these scents would be the best for anger management. I purchased apple cinnamon, aqua waves, bamboo and water lily bliss, bubbly berry splash, cashmere woods, clean linen, exotic tropical blossoms, Hawaiian breeze. I thought Hawaiian breeze might be the best one, but you can tell me if that's correct or not. Also joyful citrus and daisies. I purchased lavender and vanilla, sheer vanilla embrace, sky and sea salt. Just going through my bucket here. Tranquil lavender and aloe, vanilla caramel twist, and vanilla passion fruit.
Honestly, I will let you know it is more for personal preference. We are not going to have like a definitive answer on which one is better for a situation like that.
Okay.
It's totally up to your personal preference.
Okay, good to know. Well, I guess I will start with Hawaiian breeze.
I think that's an excellent choice. It's just, one person may like one scent more, and one person may like not like that scent as much. Like,
certainly.
It's personal preference, and that's good.
Oh, certainly.
We have all those options out.
Well, like I said, this is for aromatherapy for anger management. I was just wondering if there were any sort of clinical trials, if you made some people angry and then made them sniff one or more of these scents to see if one was better for that than another. But perhaps it's illegal to do that kind of human testing, now that I think of it.
Yeah, we don't have any research on anything like that.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to place you in a brief hold now. I'll be back with you in a few minutes with the medical team.
Okay, thank you.
All right, sir. I'm sorry for that hold. I was able to get someone on the medical team on the line. They'll be taking care of you from here.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Mr. Thompson. My name is Vicki, and I'm with the Medical Information Department. Do you mind telling me what happened? Just a brief description.
Oh, certainly. I purchased a Glade plug-in, and I was having some trouble plugging the plug into the plug, and I thought there might be some corrosion or something. So I decided to sort of try to lubricate the plug in my wall by licking my finger and sticking it in the socket to sort of, wet it up. And I experienced an electric shock.
All right, and do you mind telling me approximately what day that occurred on?
I can tell you exactly what day it was. It was Thursday, June 27th, 2024, a.k.a. yesterday.
All right. And did you see a doctor or
no, like I was telling the gentleman before, I didn't really see a need to. I passed out. According to my watch, it was only for about 3 hours. Thankfully, my watch has a rubber strap. It's a Casio calculator watch. So I guess it's not very conductive. In fact, I don't think it even suffered any damage from the shock. The divider button doesn't really work very well, but I think maybe it's just because my fingernail isn't long enough to press it all the way. But other than that, I just experienced some stiff hair and no other side effects to speak of.
So that you did lose complete consciousness for about 3 hours?
About 3 hours.
Do you mind if I ask you a few brief medical history questions?
No, I do not.
All right. If I ask you something that you don't feel comfortable answering, you can say decline, and I'll move on to the next one, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Do you mind if I ask how old you are?
Decline.
All right. And do you mind if I ask if you have any allergies that you are aware of?
Decline.
We can just decline the whole entire medical history section.
Oh, okay. Sure,
better for you?
if that saves time, sure.
Okay. So, now I've actually never had a call like this, Mr. Thompson, and I do apologize.
Oh, really?
But
Apologies.
do you mind if I place you on a brief hold
Oh, certainly.
while I consult with our toxicologist to see if there's any recommendations that we should give you, okay?
Okay.
And I will be right back.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
thank you for holding. I apologize for the wait. So the toxicologist said even though you're feeling okay
Mhm.
and you don't think you had any side effects, he does recommend that you be sent in the emergency room just to make sure you're not experiencing any type of cardiac effects.
Mhm.
Sometimes with an electric shock, especially if you lose consciousness, there could be a possibility that you could have irregular heart beats or arrhythmias in your heart. And so he did recommend that you be seen in the emergency room just to make sure, as a precaution, just to make sure everything's okay.
Okay. Well, if I have the time, I might wander over there.
All right, and it's completely, all we can do is provide recommendations, so it's completely up to you.
Sure.
I would like to give you a case number. If sometimes the doctors will call us for treatment advice,
Okay.
and that's how we locate your information in our system. So if you have any questions or the doctors have any questions, that's how we would locate you.
Okay.
Do you have something you can take down a case number with?
Sure. Just one second. I have a click pen.
All right.
The clicking mechanism isn't working. I think maybe the spring is worn out. Maybe I'll just try to remember it.
Well, you know what? You can always call back and reference your name. And before you go, do you mind if we wanted to just kind of follow up with you just to kind of check on you and see how you were doing? Would it be okay if we gave you a call on the number that you provided?
Oh, sure. I'm awake at all hours.
All right. Is there anything else I can assist you with today?
I do not think so.
All right. Well, if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to call us back.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Do you know what happened to pizza at McDonald's? Do you remember it? Please send all correspondence to pizza@mcdonalds@gmail.com. To support the show, please join my Patreon at patreon.com/pizza@mcd's for exclusive benefits. And for more information, including links to social media, merchandise opportunities, etc., visit pizza@mcdonalds.com. Thank you to my invaluable Patreon producers: Bipolar Biped, Grant Bacon, Jacob Ford, Joe Kajik, Kimberly King, Andy McH, Kyle Turok, Pam Gabriel, Polly Egan, Thomas Young, Will, Adam Crump, Andrew Duffy, Andrew Ahmed Rubin, Billy Jean, Brad Allen Thompson, Creighton Barrow, Dan Dreyer, Jeffrey Francis Sylvia, Jay Poop, Calvin Thomas, Laurel Paul, Opus Moreski, Paul Fu, and Ryan Guggenmoss. I'm Brian Thompson, investigative journalist.